I'll send a big guy in to tackle you, wrap your legs up, and hold you down on the ground while the other three stab you. You can't win. You don't have to like it. I may not like it, but whatever it is, you're gonna do it.
On several occasions, I got jumped. On others, I had just fought one-on-one. They wouldn't leave me alone because I was an ex-member.
Yeah, I was just trying to pass him on the road, and they just blocked us in playing games.
An NLR gunman climbed out the window and pumped 7 slugs into the James car, killing their baby son in his car seat.
I'm your host, Jared, and today we'll look at some of the deadliest prison gangs in the world, both past and present, in no particular order. Trust me, they're all deadly and terrifying. Now, keep in mind, some of the sources we found about these gangs are more than 20 years old, but we did our best to paint you a picture of what they were like during their most active years. And, well, it's not pretty. What gang murdered a rival gang leader and sent pieces of him to his family? What led to the longest-running gang war in California's history? And which gang wanted to overthrow the US government?
We're in prison. Oh, God damn, man. Welcome to the real world.
Brodraskapet, also known as BSK or the Wolfpack, was founded on May 27, 1995, inside Sweden's maximum security Kumla prison. Some call it a prison gang, but as the name translates in English, to its members, it's a brotherhood. Comprised of Sweden's worst inmates, most of its recruits were serving sentences for crimes ranging from drug charges to armed robberies and murder. To be clear, you had to serve time in a high-security prison to join, meaning these guys weren't just your average petty criminals. On top of that, you couldn't participate in any rehab programs. You had to refuse to give authorities samples of your urine for drug testing purposes and provide court documents to prove to members you weren't an informant. Yeah, the BSK weren't taking any chances. In 1998, Danny Fitzpatrick, a founding member, was released from prison and assassinated by 3 members of a gang affiliated with the Hells Angels only months later. Stemming from a turf war and seen as a strategic move to weaken or dismantle the BSK, Fitzpatrick was ambushed in his car. To no surprise, this led to a long and bloody rivalry with the Angels, which still has several chapters located in Sweden. Leadership changed a few times over the years, but different chapters of the BSK started to pop up across the country. Involved with drug and arms trafficking, robbery, and theft, the gang continued to operate despite crackdowns from authorities. Since September 2006, your status in the Brotherhood hasn't necessarily been determined by seniority, but rather by what you can offer the gang.
You can clean the clubhouse, stand guard at parties, drive around members, transport weapons, transport drugs, carry out acts of violence for the gang, so everything possible just to prove that you are worthy and advanced to the next step.
Exact numbers for gang enrollment as of 2025 are hard to come by. Sadly, it often recruits kids in their early to mid-teens because charges against the youth are significantly less severe in Sweden. Let's just hope they're not lurking at my local IKEA. I need my meatballs. Okay, bad joke. Moving on, a gang that is known to kill their members just to protect themselves.
They'll eliminate you. If you go back into history, 99% of the victims of the Mexican Mafia have been their own members.
The Mexican Mafia, also known as La M, was founded in 1957 by 13 inmates, including Luis Flores, at California's dual vocational institution. His goal was to protect Mexican and Hispanic inmates being targeted by other gangs within the American prison system. But uniting behind bars led to the realization that they could also combine local street gangs and turn into an organized criminal empire. Today, members pay tax both inside and outside of prison, with numerous leaders across different states. Joining the Mexican Mafia isn't so simple either. You need to have served time in prison, follow their rules for a minimum of 2 years to prove loyalty, and get unanimous approval from local leaders. Oh, and you also need to injure or kill someone severely. That's important to mention. The gang's main rivals include the Black Guerrilla family and Black Street gangs. Given that the Mexican Mafia is known for historically being anti-black, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that they have allied with the Aryan Brotherhood. Although most gangs have found clever ways of communicating while locked up, the Mexican Mafia has become notorious for using cell phones, allowing them to do business in and outside of prisons. From coordinating assassinations to moving weapons and drugs, this gang has cracked the code on operating within prison. In 2022, California prisons seized over 6,700 cell phones from inmates. As of 2025, it's believed the Mexican Mafia has between 350 and 400 members currently in prisons, and tens of thousands more affiliated with the gang around California. Safe to say they're going strong despite recent crackdowns by local authorities. Now our next gang is a known ally of the Mexican Mafia, and it's just as deadly.
When the Aryan Brotherhood wants to kill you in prison, they don't stab you once, they don't stab you twice. They stab you 117 times. When they want you dead, you're gonna be dead.
The Aryan Brotherhood, commonly known as the AB, was formed in 1964 in California's San Quentin prison. Notable members and leaders include Clayton Fountain, Barry Mills, and Thomas Silverstein. By the mid-70s, the gang had expanded with factions in prisons across the entire country. And the one thing they've become notorious for is their violent ways. At one point, the gang's members made up 1% of inmates across the country, but were responsible for 25% of murders behind bars. As the gang continued to grow, a three-man commission was created to oversee operations on a federal level. In 1980, Barry the Baron Mills, Tyler the Hulk Bingham, and John Greshner were given the honors. And although they called the shots, they weren't the ones responsible for the creation of ADX Supermax Prison. That honor goes to Clayton Fountain and Thomas Silverstein, the AB leaders who, in 1983, while locked up at Marion Prison, got out of their cuffs and killed 2 correctional officers, stabbing one of them 40 times.
The ideal candidate for membership in the Aryan Brotherhood would be somebody that has demonstrated violence in the past. They are willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish their mission.
Joining the Aryan Brotherhood often requires an initiation of killing a rival gang member or attacking a corrections officer. Notable rivals of the AB include the Black Guerrilla family, the DC Blacks, and the Bloods and Crips. Inside a prison, there is a hierarchy with leadership at both the state and federal levels. On the streets, there are usually leaders in charge of cities or regions, and like most gangs on our list, they're involved in weapons, drugs, and murder.
All right, fun stuff.
In the 90s, the gang was hired by famous mob boss John Gotti for protection, and at one point, to kill an inmate who attacked him. Although they worked together briefly, Gotti died in prison in 2002 and the hit was never made. Sources claim there are up to 20,000 members of the Aryan Brotherhood on the streets and in prison. With the US government constantly trying to crack down on leadership, it's tough to know for sure who the shot callers are. One thing is for sure, the gang isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Our next gang was actually created by the AB, serving as middlemen for their operations. And they love motorcycles and mayhem. The Nazi Lowriders, aka the NLR, were established in the 70s at Preston Youth Correctional Facility in California. It started when another Aryan Brotherhood leader, John Stinson, began to recruit younger inmates with similar ideologies to the AB to help the gang with their illegal operations. Although it started in California, the gang has since grown significantly, with members both inside prisons and on the streets across the United States. Similar to the Aryan Brotherhood, the NLR's ideology is white supremacy. To no one's surprise, their rivals are predominantly black gangs, including the Bloods, Crips, and the Black Guerrilla family. But according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, in the 1970s, they allowed a small group of Hispanic members to join, mostly to do their dirty work like trafficking drugs into prisons. The gang follows a 3-tier system, with seniors at the top running the show, followed by juniors, and what they call kids. The NLR elect seniors after being members for at least 5 years. Juniors are less seasoned but help find new recruits. And the kids usually come from gangs like Public Enemy No. 1 and are mentored by the seniors. They can be anywhere in their teens to early 20s. Inmates who don't follow the gang's rules are often met with a grim fate.
You can think all of this. You can be as big as you want. If I send one guy and he can't do it, I'll send 3. If I send 3 and they can't do it, I'll send 5.
Your safest bet to avoid having a similar fate is just not going to prison in the first place. I'm just saying. The NLR is, of course, allied with the AB and Public Enemy No. 1, but has also been known to work alongside the Hells Angels and the Mexican Mafia. Unlike other gangs on our list, the NLR managed to keep a low profile for nearly 20 years before being detected by authorities. Their criminal activities included assaults, murders, weapons trafficking, and anything to do with drugs. Some members were known to use the drugs as well.
Lowell, who was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, testified at trial that he'd been in a drug-induced haze on a 3-day methamphetamine binge.
Cops asked him to drop it, and he wouldn't, and he turned towards the cops, and that's when the cops shot him.
Richard Thorpe, an NLR parolee wanted on a weapons charge, was dead on the spot. Traces of methamphetamine and alcohol later found in his system.
Aside from the killing of a baby in what appeared to be a road rage incident, other notable crimes include the beating of Eric Miller, a black man, with a baseball bat outside of a video rental store, and the assault with a hammer on another black man, Nathaniel Harris. Just when I thought they couldn't get any worse. As of 2015, the NLR's membership was believed to be around the 5,000 member mark, but accurate numbers these days are hard to come by. Our next gang takes revenge to another level, but before we explain why, make sure to like and subscribe to learn how to survive the wild life of prison gangs. You know, if you ever end up in the clink. The Netas Association was founded in the late 70s by Carlos Torres Iriarte inside Oso Blanco Max Security Prison in Puerto Rico. Mainly comprised of political prisoners, the gang was initially created to protect inmates from other gangs and abusive guards within the prison. Although many inmates respected Iriarte's motivation, rival gangs, specifically the G27, wanted him dead. In 1981, with the help of crooked officers, Iriarte was stabbed and shot to death while returning to his cell. Officials later concluded some of his lieutenants had turned on him after he refused to allow the gang to become involved in drug trafficking.
They thought you knocked the head, body falls, right? Nah. Chop the head off and we cool.
This sparked a deadly riot. The Netas wanted revenge.
They tripped away through walls, cell through cell, and got two.
They allegedly broke into the cell of the G27's leader, Minota, stabbed him over 150 times, and then cut him into approximately 84 pieces. There have been claims that the gang sent some pieces to his mother.
Administration of the facilities received certain parts. The second in charge of the G27s received the eyes of the leader.
It's one thing to kill someone. It's another to chop them up into pieces and mail them out. By the 90s, the gang had gone international, with members in New York and Florida. As it continued to expand, members were recruited in Canadian prisons, as well as parts of Spain, Italy, and the Dominican Republic.
We ran 7 prisons at the time.
Still, it seemed it was larger than authorities initially realized, with members also in Argentina, Chile, Portugal, and Mexico. Each chapter of the Netas had a president, vice president, treasurer, disciplinarian, and coordinator, to add some civility to the organization. Each position was voted in by majority rule. A 2005 report by the National Drug Intelligence Center, now known as the DEA, stated the gang's main source of income was the distribution of drugs, most notably crack, heroin, and marijuana. Naturally, this led to tension among other gangs involved in the drug trade, specifically across the US. Their main rivals were street gangs, notably the Latin Kings, as well as MS-13 and the Bloods and Crips. I say were because in 2019, 40 of the Netas' top members and leaders were convicted of various charges that pretty much gutted its ability to compete in the brutal world of organized crime. Up next, a gang that is a part of the longest running gang war in the state of California. And they're all about family.
When you see us out there on the yards and we're doing burpees and we're doing exercises out there, we're not out there doing that because we're just trying to get karate bodies and just trying to look nice, right? We're training for a war. That's what it is.
La Nuestra Familia, or NF, was founded in the mid-60s at Soledad State Prison in California. Inmates initially created the gang as a form of protection against the Mexican Mafia, but have since grown into a deadly gang both behind bars and on the streets. Back then, NF was comprised of Mexican Americans from Northern California, while the Mexican Mafia was predominantly Mexican Americans from the southern parts of California. In 1965, a Mexican Mafia member allegedly stole a pair of shoes from an NF member, which led to the longest running gang war in California. These guys clearly take their kicks very seriously. Without one true leader, the gang instead relies on a council of senior members, the majority of whom are incarcerated, to make big decisions. Joining the gang requires members to put the gang above everything else.
When you make a commitment to the NF, it's a lifetime commitment. I was asked things like, are you willing to kill your own flesh and blood? You know, are you willing to put the organization first before everything else in your life?
Murder, robbery, drug trafficking, and money laundering are all a part of the gang's ways of making money. And given that they sell meth, naturally, they're rivals with the Aryan Brotherhood and, of course, the Mexican Mafia. Since the 90s, authorities have increased attempts to take down the NF, and although they've been able to arrest many of the highest-ranking members over the years, the gang is still going strong. Up next, a gang that is considered one of the most politically motivated prison gangs of all time. The Black Guerrilla family, or BGF, was founded in 1966 by George Jackson, George Lewis, and W.L. Nolan, while all three were locked up in San Quentin State Prison, California. Initially inspired by the Black Power movement, the gang refers to itself as an ideological African-American Marxist-Leninist revolutionary organization composed of prisoners. Their goals were to promote Black Power ideologies, ensure Black inmates were treated with respect and dignity, and to overthrow the US government. To no surprise, in the 60s and 70s, Black inmates were constantly dealing with racial injustice at the hands of other inmates and correctional officers. What initially started as a political movement behind bars quickly turned into a violent gang after Nolan and Jackson were killed by correctional officers in 1970 and 71. Nolan was actually killed along with two other inmates by a racist guard during a riot when he was trying to defend himself from a coordinated attack by the Aryan Brotherhood. It's no surprise that the two gangs are still rivals. And the guard? His murder of Nolan was ruled a justifiable homicide. Although the majority of BGF members are located in California prisons, the gang has since expanded beyond bars and state lines, with affiliates in Maryland, specifically Baltimore. The gang is involved in trafficking drugs and weapons and is known for being violent. But they're also still fighting for equal rights for Black inmates, staying true to their political roots. It's believed that as of 2025, the gang has hundreds of members in prisons across California and Maryland, and thousands of associates. Believe it or not, some of those associates work in prisons with BGF members. In 2013, 25 members were indicted on racketeering charges, 13 of them being correctional officers working in Maryland. Aside from the charges brought against them, investigators revealed members of the gang had illicit affairs with female officers.
Look, I'm just saying, a pretty lady like you shouldn't be spending all her time in here.
Some of which resulted in the guards becoming pregnant. Surviving any of these gangs requires loyalty and a willingness to do what is asked of you without question. One thing is for sure, anyone in these gangs who talks or works alongside law enforcement is a dead man walking. Although most, if not all, gangs on our list often come with a lifetime membership, some individuals have managed to escape. They've just had to change their identity or enter witness protection and have a constant worry of not if, but when the gang will come after them. Now, we didn't get to cover every well-known prison gang. That's for part 2. Let us know in the comments who you think we should include. And if you want to learn more about some of the world's most terrifying and dangerous gangs, we've made videos on both. Personally, I'll be staying far, far away from any of these gangs and hole up here in my bunker. We'll see you next time on another episode of How to Survive.